Good tidings, ladies and gentlemen of the Lodge, and welcome back! Today we are continuing our Hero's Journey series, where we zoom in on our favorite heroes and analyze their journey every step of the way. Our hero of choice today is none other than Sora from Kingdom Hearts 1. But before moving forward, as a preface, I must mention that the hero's journey as we know it was put forth by Joseph Campbell in his internationally acclaimed book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces. It outlines how many of our favorite heroes, despite their differences, all experience the same patterns and structure on their adventures. The model on the screen is the one I will be using, as it outlines both the hero's inner and outer journeys. To help you follow along, the outer journey will be listed in gold, while the inner journey will be listed in purple along the bottom. But without further ado, what do you say we get into it, starting with step number 1. Ordinary world, unawareness of the problem. Our journey starts with Sora, Riku, and Kairi all living their best life on Destiny Islands. In fact, life is so peaceful, there's nothing better to do but take naps on the beach until your friends come and wake you up. Here on Destiny Islands is the ordinary world for our hero Sora, as he remains blissfully unaware of the approaching darkness. However, this ordinary world is beginning to bore our young hero, which will swiftly lead us into our next step. Call to adventure, increased awareness. Between Kairi's hometown being a mystery, along with Sora and Riku's ever-growing curiosity, our hero's awareness is beginning to expand. Most particularly, I believe it's Riku's speech here that serves as the main catalyst to our call to adventure.
Well, I haven't really thought about it. It's just, I've always wondered why we're here, on this island. If there are any other worlds out there, why did we end up on this one? And suppose there are other worlds. Then ours is just a little piece of something much greater. So, we could have just as easily ended up somewhere else, right?
I don't know.
Exactly. That's why we need to go out there and find out. Just sitting here won't change a thing. It's the same old stuff. So let's go.
It seems as though the peaceful home of Destiny Islands is starting to feel like a restrictive prison. However, Sora and his friends should be careful what they wish for, as the reality of leaving home is starting to sink in, leading us to our next step. Refusal of the call, fear and resistance to change. This is the point in our story where our hero starts to experience some self-doubt and anxiety about the incoming changes. In a very subtle way, I actually think Riku picked up on Sora feeling this way. I mean, why else would he choose to tease him about sharing a Pow fruit with Kairi? We see this have an effect on Sora as he spends his time in the cave carving out an offering between Kairi and himself. As excited as Sora may be to go on this adventure with his friends, it's obvious to me that the prospect of change has Sora quite worried that it might drive Kairi and himself apart. Which will transition us to our next step on the journey. Meeting the mentor. Overcoming fear. As we know, when night falls, the darkness arrives to consume Destiny Islands. The sheer sight strikes fear in Sora's heart as he runs out in search of his friends. Where Sora overcomes his fear is in his confrontation with Riku. As we see, Riku stands willing and ready to embrace the darkness. Sora, despite being afraid of the darkness, overcomes his fear and reaches out to his friend. He's too late to reach Riku, but he finds himself with a different reward, the Keyblade. Fast forward to us ending up in Traverse Town, where we bump into our man Leon. Leon actually goes on to educate us about what the Keyblade is, and enlightens us that it's the reason that the Heartless are chasing us. Without getting too far ahead, throughout this particular journey, Leon, along with the rest of the Traverse Town gang, serve as our mentors, who help us to understand the world around us. This role would eventually be filled by Yen Sid later in the series, but here in Kingdom Hearts 1, it really was nice to see characters like Leon carry the torch. Our next step in the journey will be crossing the threshold, committing to change. This step in the journey can be symbolized by Sora's meeting with Donald and Goofy, and them boarding the gummy ship and crossing the threshold into other worlds. Where committing to change comes in is actually in several ways. On the first front, keep in mind that Sora's idea of this journey was that it would be himself, Riku, and Kairi. On a frontal layer, Sora's first commitment to change is accepting that his companions are gonna be these two sickos, as opposed to his childhood friends. On a more internal front, Sora agreeing to take this voyage, in a sense, is him committing to the courage that he will need to manifest on his journey. And in some ways, this is eluded by Donald demanding that Sora get out of his own head, for the gummy ship only runs on happy faces. Our next step is one that covers the bulk of our adventure, and that's tests, allies, and enemies, experimenting with new conditions. As per usual, in Kingdom Hearts, this step in the journey covers the bulk of our journey, as it perfectly exemplifies the journey through the Disney worlds. When it comes to tests, this can be displayed through Sora needing to close up the world's keyholes. When it comes to allies, you have everything from Cloud to Hercules to Merlin. Enemies can be covered by all the Disney villains we bump into, but most notably it's going to be Maleficent. All these personal encounters and world discoveries allow our hero to experiment with new conditions, which often lead to some self-discovery. After we've expanded our horizons, we are brought to our next step, approach of the inmost cave, preparing for major change. There are 3 moments that stand out to me at this point. The first being Sora's vision of Kairi's grandmother talking about the age of fairy tales, which, if you take this from a grand perspective, is Sora's biggest clue in as to what is unfolding before the eyes of himself and his friends. Thus prompting his approach of the inmost cave, Sora losing the Keyblade to Riku. This is the most important obstacle Sora has to overcome on his journey. It's important for Sora to learn that his greatest strength and power is not in his weapon. Again, these 2 scenes can be seen as Sora's prompt into the inmost cave and a preparation for major change. And what conclusion does this lead Sora to? I'll let the young hero speak for himself in this 3rd scene.
Although my heart may be weak, it's not alone. It's grown with each new experience, and it's found a home with all the friends I've made. I've become part of their heart just as they've become a part of mine. And if they think of me now and then, if they don't forget me, then our hearts will be one. I don't need a weapon. My friends are my power.
Now, this takes us to Ordeal, Death and Rebirth. Attempt big change. The ordeal unfolds in a battle between Riku and Sora, 2 friends who, when the journey started, wanted the same thing, but ended up on opposite sides. Even though Sora wins the fight with the Keyblade, Sora realizes that alone isn't going to solve anything, especially not waking up Kairi. Sora's previous realization that his friends are his power and that his strength is in his heart leads him to his attempt at big change. This is symbolized by Sora's self-sacrifice that restores Kairi and leads us to what serves as Sora's death and rebirth. Next up is Reward, Consequences of Attempt at Change. Sora's reward is his reunion with Kairi. Sora's attempt at change didn't solve everything, but it brought Kairi back and has reinvigorated him with a new wave of confidence that has him ready for what lies ahead. That said, let's quickly move into our next step. The Road Back, New Challenge and Rededication. This is the step in the journey where we prepare and set the stage for the climax. Though Kairi has been rescued, all is not right. Riku still needs our help, thus setting up our next challenge and rededication. Further supplementing this step is the Lucky Charm scene between Kairi and Sora. Sora accepting this lucky charm is in a sense him dedicating to returning to Kairi safe and sound. After one solid promise, Sora begins the road back to Hollow Bastion, bringing us to Resurrection, Final Attempts, Last Minute Danger. Our final boss battle with Ansem perfectly captures our final attempts. I say that because these final attempts not only should serve as a last-minute danger, which we could easily point to Ansem, but should also point to a resurrection, which is why, at least in our first phase of the boss, Destiny Island serving as our location is absolutely perfect. Not only that in Destiny Islands will be resurrected after the battle, but that it being the starting point of our journey really helps to bring the whole process full circle. Then lastly, we have Return with Elixir, Mastery of Problem. Needless to say, Sora, Riku, and Kairi all got their wish. They set out to see other worlds, make new friends, and broaden their horizons. And here in the endgame, I doubt anyone would deny that this journey gave them exactly that. Sora was faced with a lot of problems on his journey, but primarily he had to deal with his fear of being separated from Kairi, needing to bring Riku back to his senses, and to come to realize the strength of his heart, and that his true power comes from the connections he makes, and not some gifted weapon of destiny. Even with those problems solved, it doesn't mean all the trouble is over. The story ends with Sora, Riku, and Kairi all being completely separated. And you would think that this would be Sora's worst nightmare. But it isn't. Why? Because he has the elixir, his heart. And so long as Riku and Kairi remain in his heart, he knows they won't be separated for long. Kingdom Hearts 1 will always have a special place in my heart. Embarking on this journey with Sora and his friends has brought me no regrets, and plenty of memories. Sora's story here in Kingdom Hearts 1 serves as the perfect bedrock for the story moving forward, even today. For it's the strength of our heroes' hearts and connections that have always led to their success. But anyway, that's about all I'm going to have for you guys today. Be sure, please, to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see all of you beautiful sickos and normies next time.